How long is the interview? Can we give a 29-minute answer to this non-spoiler question?
I would lose my mind. If you could keep one item from the shrine, which item would you pick and why?
Mine would be they recreated the garage, the section of the garage and the door that Tatum is crushed in. And you only see it a little bit in like the top corner of a few frames, but it was my favorite prop on that set.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Solid choice.
Yeah. I'd go with Billy's knife. I want the OG. Yeah.
I'd go with one of the robes.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Robe is smart. I would pick the TV because Stu's dead.
Yeah.
You said it, not
Stu's
us.
dead. Stu's dead. I've been saying it for years, and I keep getting shit for it. All right. Big, broad question here. Now, you could talk spoilers. Our viewers have been warned. There's graphics all over this video. Do not watch it if you haven't seen the movie. Go watch it, and then come push play, and it'll be right here for you. So, of all the scenes in this movie, going into filming, which did you think would be the most challenging to film? And then ultimately, was that indeed the most challenging, or did something else catch you by surprise?
Subway?
Yeah. Subway in the ladder sequence, too, I think. It was because that came and went a little bit and came back.
The monologue, guys. The killer monologue was the thing.
I was like, Mindy's monologue was easy.
The killer monologue, there was... weekends were consumed with
just blocking,
talking about how to block that scene and make sure that it had enough. I mean, obviously in Scream 5, most of that takes place in the kitchen, so there are only so many things you can do with it. We wanted to make sure that with this one there was a lot of movements and that there were a lot of gear shifts and changes within that scene. And so figuring out where people go, why they end up where they end up, at what point in the monologue those changes happen. And then just shot selection wise, it's 5 characters that become 6 characters. We ran through the alphabet 3 times in terms of the number of setups that we did. I think it was like 100
and colors on the iPad
setups. Yeah. So it was just, we all cheered when we were finally done with 87D. It was like this moment where we're like, holy fuck, I can't believe we survived. We made it out of this scene.
Also just on a performance level, because like Dermot has to carry so much of that scene in terms of like exposition and, Liana and Jack too. And then Sam and Tara have to stay emotionally grounded the whole time. And I think, like hats off to all of them because they gave us so much to work with in the edit. That even after going through it all there, then we got to the edit, and I remember Jay, our editor, was like, how do we want to do this scene? Like,
he said he literally stayed up nights crying about how to cut that sequence.
There's like a million versions of that scene that we could have ended up with.
It's kind of nice hearing you guys go like the dialogue, character-driven route, especially when you would think in a movie like this, something that's more action-heavy with blood would be the most difficult thing. But that's some of the most important stuff that gives everything else weight.
Totally, yeah. I would think the action stuff is like really in our blood and our bones. I think that we did like a lot of really scrappy action stuff ourselves, like kind of when we first started making stuff together. So I think that there was like that muscle flexes really easily for us. I think it's really about like an ensemble scene where you want to give everyone a moment. And it's also a lot of page count, and it's really valuable. Like everyone sort of waits for that big reveal, that big monologue, right? It's like such a coveted moment in a Scream movie, and wanting to make sure that it felt alive and activated the whole time. Going back to what you just mentioned about scrappy filmmaking, even when you are making a Paramount Scream movie, every once in a while things don't go to plan and you have to get scrappy. Is there any example of something in this film where you had to approach it that way when some folks out there might be like, oh, big budget studio horror movie?
I feel like on some level, all of it. Like, to be totally honest, like we talked a lot about how like this feels like a really big movie, but for us it doesn't feel much different than like when we did Ready or Not for, a fifth of the budget or whatever. But and part of that is intentional because I think there's an energy that comes with that. And I think we love that, making it feel kind of scrappy, making it feel like... pressure's a good thing. Yeah, and I think the big difference is that on this one, our department heads have more to work with. They have more, resources. So there's a lot, like the subway build was gigantic, But, and then we're only in it for like 3 days. Yeah. Right. So you'd think like, oh, that's a long... We used to spend a week in a set like that. It was 3 days of shooting, and then we were gone. Gale's apartment. It was Gale's scrappiest we got. That we had go. We had Courtney. Courtney was up there for just a very specific chunk of time. Night shoots.
in a practical location that's windows 360 degrees, so can't control the light. You have to get what you can get while the sun is still down, and it was a race.
And we only had 6 hours of
and shooting nights in Canada in the summer, so there's not a lot of nighttime. And
I have so many questions about that sequence.
The panic attacks.
I'm excited for the movie you're talking about, where it's like a surplus of stuff.
That sequence, there's a lot I love in the movie. That sequence in particular might be one of the most tense scenes I've ever seen in a Scream movie. One, because the action is very well choreographed, but also you use the emotional connection to Gale so incredibly well, where all of a sudden I realized, like I was grabbing the armrests of my seat far harder than I had the entire movie. It's really something else. Of everything I saw in this film, what would you say changed the most from script to screen?
That third act.
Third act.
There was I think it was written intentionally loose because there was so much work. It was all happening so fast, and there was so much work we just knew we were going to have to do in prep, and a lot of that work was going to be location specific. That was it was a warehouse for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
It was a warehouse with movie memorabilia in it, not true crime stuff, or it was a mix of things.
It was like a little. It was a little bit. Yeah, it was kind of both.
There was no fan film component, and so we were scouting, and our production designer Michel Liberté came to us and was like, "There's this badass old theater in Montreal that we can take over, and we can make it whatever we want." And that was sort of the seed that then became what that set piece, like what that location,
which then
what the
also
shrine ultimately is.
Because there was also a switch on what the killers and the motive was. That also changed during the course of it. And a lot of this is, credit to Guy and Jamie. Like, we got the script early. They were still, like, in the process of working it all out. And then they were able to, like, every little idea that came to them, they were able to take it, take that seed and plant it and grow something really awesome. But it was an ongoing process.
And it was like a real time, like, guys, we're at the theater, like, what if this happened? Oh, great. It was really...
And then they flew up there, remember? Guy and Jamie, they flew
did the
up
walkthrough.
To do a whole walkthrough to be able to then take the ideas that they had and put in the warehouse to be like, well, where could we play this out in this theater?
Oh, I have so many questions. Big props to that location scout. That makes such a huge difference in this film. If it was different motives, but was it always the same 3 killers? Was the plan always to make the killers in this movie Richie's family?
No.
Yeah, we found that in development. Yeah. We found that in development, though.
Yeah, that was working on it with Guy and Jamie. Yeah,
that was born of wanting, at the end, I think that we knew that the movie up to that big reveal was going to be like pretty bombastic and pretty crazy in terms of its energy level. And I think we just felt like the motive at the end of the day needed to be something super primal and really simple and relatable, and like revenge, the love and the loss of a child. That it's also, for as much as like the core 4 story is about family, that the villain story is also about family. It just felt like this really neat and tidy kind of symmetrical handoff of that theme. And at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be about some larger, grand kind of meta thing. Like, it can just be simply about revenge.
Right, and it shows you how things snowball a little bit too, right? Because it started with the production design and finding a theater, and then being like, oh, we could put fan films up on and see what was going on. And then we're like, well, if it's Richie's family, maybe Richie was making these fan films because he loves the stab movies so much. And then we reached out to Jack Quaid, and Jack had this
treasure trove.
Treasure trove of like him talking directly to camera when he was younger, and we're like, this is perfect. Now it's all tied together, and the emotionality is all there, and then that unit and theme of family is there at the end.
It works really well. It pairs with all the other character evolutions quite well, too. So I'm not going to press you on the other killer that came before Richie's family, but you did also say the motive had changed. So the motive in terms of the 3 of them and why they were doing this?
There's a misdirect on the motive the whole time, and when I remember when we were reading earlier drafts of the script, it's, us, Guy and Jamie, everybody agreed that like something wasn't quite clicking, but we weren't really sure what that was. And I remember when they were like, we figured it out. That's the motive that gets you there. And then that's part of the motive is, let's do a misdirect. It's all about this, and we'll start these rumors about Sam, and we'll make it.
It's about like,
and you think it's about this online mob mentality and the shit that we all talk about in pop culture and real life now. And then to have like, there's like, I got one of my favorite moments is when Dermot's just like, yeah, whatever. You're like, that. Who gives a shit about
motive?
Any of that?
That's bullshit. Yeah.
This, and you go, oh, this is about, this is about something real. This is about family. And I know one of the scenes that like never changed much from the early edit was when that hits Sam and Tara, and you go, oh fuck, this is not like some big, like we're not having like a big. Let's talk about big grand things. It's just you killed our fucking kid.
It's that Quinn line. You killed our brother, you motherfucker, and you're like. I'm sorry, what? Like the bottom kind of falls out of the scene in that moment in such a great way.
It's very Nancy Loomis too, and
It's
I like
very
that
Nancy.
connection.
And we're
really,
definitely
it's pure revenge, and that's it.
And two, we very much were aware and wanted to be living in the sort of direct lineage of 2. And there's a lot that we love about that movie that we wanted to make sure we were borrowing in very specific ways in this one.
It's a very random connection question that has nothing to do with Scream, but were the Jurassic Park vibes in the bodega scene deliberate?
Yes.
Definitely. 100%.
My 2 favorite franchises in this movie.
Oh yeah.
I love it. I did want to ask a little bit about the Sidney of it all, and I guess I have to start with, was the plan ever to have her included in this narrative? And if that was the case, how did you go about pivoting and writing a story that didn't have her there in the flesh?
We found out early on in pre-production that Neve wasn't going to do this one, and there had been drafts and ideas and stuff going around, but the thing that Guy and Jamie did that was like so great and really helped us is that they had created the structure of the movie that I don't think ever really changed much.
Pretty solid.
Yeah, it was really solid. Like stuff like the motives and that shifted, but the movie from kind of a bird's eye view didn't change that much. And I think one of the things, obviously, like we were super bummed when Neve wasn't going to do it, and the thing that we immediately went to was like, okay, if we're not doing this with Neve again, we have to make sure that you fall in love with these characters the way that we all fell in love with, Sidney and Gale and Dewey. And so we took that responsibility really, really seriously and made sure that, if we do our job right, you leave this movie going, oh, I love the core 4, and I want their journey to continue the same way that we all want Sidney and Gale and Dewey to continue.
And at the end of the day, I think there's no way to...
Success in that department. I couldn't believe that.
Yeah, we don't think there's any way to make a Scream movie that doesn't have an echo of that character, right? Mm-hmm. She means so much to the franchise and to us, and it was important that she be present sort of spiritually in the movie, but that the only way to really honor her was to also make a great Scream movie and do those characters, do the core 4 justice.
I don't know how you guys feel about this, but part of my take on that matter too is we've watched these people fight for their lives and essentially to live happily ever after for so many years now. If you never let anybody experience that happily ever after, what's that fight gonna mean anymore?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think about that a lot. Going back to the killers briefly, when you're casting killers, like in particular, I guess, Jack and Liana, what do you look for in the 2 of them that says to you that they can handle both sides of that divide without, like tipping the scale too far too soon?
So when we're casting those roles specifically, they read sides for their character, and then everyone that we cast read a monologue, a Ghostface monologue. And part of it is to throw the cast off the scent, because you can't cast the killer specifically, because if you're auditioning multiple people, then multiple people know the ending of the movie, and it becomes a whole tangled mess. So everybody, Josh, Liana, Jack, Devin,
and everybody else who gave great auditions but wasn't in the movie.
They all read Amber's monologue from Scream 5. And in addition to their scenes, and by the way, there are some Josh Segarra's Ghostface was so fucking awesome.
It was incredible.
But there's so many. I think one of the things you learn if you love these movies, that those monologues have so many. There are so many like weird little performance opportunities inside of them, and you get a really quick sense of someone's range when you give them one of those. And if they know the movies, like Liana, Jack, like they're such fans of the Scream movies, they knew exactly what to do with that those pieces of work.
And I also remember like Liana specifically, like she cut loose on the audition, and it was like it's weird because it's not a version that you see in the movie necessarily, but kind of what you're saying, you see the range, and also just the freedom to be like, oh, I can go fucking crazy, I can do this, and you go like, oh, that's an actor who like is giving it their all.
Yeah, it's totally fearless.
Yeah.
And one of the best parts of all of that was they didn't get the third act of the script at all. So they were in their costume fittings, and they tried on their costumes, and then we came in, and there was like, one more thing you have to try on. And then we brought out the Ghostface robe and a mask so they could try it on for the first time. That's how they found out.
Yeah, they don't know they're Ghostface until
in the
they've
movie.
already been cast.
Yeah.
Oh, I have so many questions about this.
We also have amazing videos of these moments of them finding out.
I remember you saying about telling Jack and like the expression on his face when he found out. So did you tell this cast the identity of Ghostface at the same time you did the Scream 5 cast? Like in terms of the production schedule and everything, did everyone find out?
No, there was less
Yeah.
secrecy on this one.
With the original.
Yeah. Honestly, Tony though didn't know until he saw the movie, which is very funny.
Right.
Tony was living on a very tiny little island for the longest time. We also have a video of him before he walked into his first screening of it. We were like, who's your Ghostface prediction? Wildly off.
I was busy talking to Tony, and he was trying to convince me that he had never seen any of the Scream movies, and he didn't know anything, and I couldn't tell if he was like,
he's
kidding me
very
or
serious.
something.
Yeah.
He's very serious.
I kept not believing him, and then also telling him, like, you're dead. I know you're dead. I know you're dead. One thing that was making me curious with the three of them, because I don't think you say it in the movie, what are their real names?
What? I'm sorry. I think we have to go.
Right, yeah, exactly.
We've had this debate a lot. Of like, where are the fake names? Where are the real names? Is Bailey
Richie
real?
Kirsch.
Is
Bailey
Kirsch?
real or is it Kirsch?
Yeah. It's and we have an internal debate with us and Guy and Jamie.
I think we've decided. Correct me if I'm wrong. That Richie Kirsch is a pseudonym, and Bailey is also a pseudonym. That the real name is whoever they were in the Midwest.
Yeah. Yeah, but then there's an issue with that tracking with him transferring to the NYPD.
Right, NYPD. Yeah.
Oh, my head is exploding.
Yeah,
It does. Yeah, you
go back like 2 layers.
This is gonna mess up my little timeline here, but given the idea of bringing up their names, what about the name of the movie itself? Was there some sort of internal debate in terms of going, I don't know, like Scream 6 with 6 written out, not in Roman numerals? Was it ever going to be Scream 2023?
We had a million names. I mean, every name you can think of. We went through a bunch of stuff. And when it landed on Scream Roman numerals, I think we all just sort of embraced it because it lets the audience know that we know that this is Scream Roman numeral 6. This isn't, the last one of Scream, just, there's like a classiness to calling it just Scream. On this one, it's like, hey, we're in New York. It's Scream with Roman numerals.
It's absurd.
It's absurd. Yeah. Like it's balls to the wall.
Yeah,
just go have fun. Yeah, and it looks cool,
nice.
right?
Yeah.
It's like it kind of serves both purposes.
Okay, I remember my third act question now. So you were just telling us about the reveal via like, here's your Ghostface costume. So Dermot knew he was the killer when he was first cast, but Jack and Liana didn't?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What was it like, I guess, different approaches to directing them so that when people go back and watch this movie a second time, the seeds are there, whether one actor knows and then the others don't?
Well, they all knew by the time we were shooting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So by the time we were
I
shooting,
thought it was later into production. I'm like, how do you do that?
But how the movie views in that new context is really important to us, and it's something that, any scene that those characters are in, we spend an extra amount of time making sure that it makes sense, that the scene makes sense for it to belong. What the characters are saying, what they're talking about. I think one of the only scenes we lifted was a scene where Dermot's standing over the body of his daughter, and some other police officers walk in, and he tells them to get the fuck out, that like no one's going to touch her body but him. And it just felt weird if you were to go back knowing the reveal, like why is she laying there? It just there was enough air, there were enough questions sort of in the repeat viewing of that scene once you know who the killers are, that we were like, do we need it? Do you even need it?
And see what happens.
So that's something to make sure that it holds up under that level of a microscope once you know who the killers are, is like a huge thing for us.
Yeah.
Were there any particular lines of dialogue that were most tricky to nail in terms of planting a seed, but not revealing something too quickly?
I think the one that jumps out a lot that I know we talked about when we were editing and we kind of have fun with it, but it's also, they're so well delivered. Or there's a scene where Dermot and Melissa are, if you fuck with my family, you die. And she's
exactly
like,
where my head was going.
Yeah, and you're like, they're just telling you exactly what's going to happen in about 45 minutes. Like,
there's also the moment in the interrogation where he says, well, I'm Quinn's father, so and I can vouch for her, so I think we're safe there. And the sisters kind of look at each other. That's one of those moments that I think was always like exactly what a Scream movie should do, where it should steer so hard into who a suspect is that you're like, it's too fucking obvious. Like, there's no way that Quinn or Bailey is the killer.
Both movies, the first time around, I figured out some sort of narrative to make every single person in that ensemble guilty, and that's
great.
That's good. That's what you're supposed to do. All right, now I want to talk about near-death scenes. Just more broadly, how do you guys figure out how far to push it with the violence and the stabbing and let someone survive in a way that makes an audience believe that it's possible?
Believe.
Right.
I mean, we it's kind of a two-part answer, but we shoot all of the violence. If it ends up here in the movie, we have it to here. And we find that we calibrate that in the edit. We want to make sure we have more than enough. That's a big part of it. And then, again, one of the things that we talked about a lot during this process was that this should be a secret feel-good movie. And we knew we didn't want to kill these characters. Like, we just didn't. And it really might be us just being softies and being like, I don't know, we just love them. We love them as actors. We love the characters. Like, I want to kill them. And, there were obviously conversations about, well, should so-and-so die? Should so-and-so die? And we're like, no. Like, at the end of the day. The end of the day.
That core four thing only works if the four of them are there at the end of the movie. But I think in terms of like calibrating that, I think that, look, we understand and are fully embrace that we play a little fast and loose with that. I think that that's part of the fun of these movies and the heightened reality that they live in. And I think to a certain extent, movies have desensitized audiences in that sense, right? Like we see so many movies now where there's just an insane amount of action and there's a crazy outcome to those sequences. And I think that we creatively were comfortable with that. We were like, cool, let's exist in the lineage of these movies that are like far into a franchise where batshit crazy things happen. And then it feels really good when those characters make it out alive. And it was just really a conscious choice for us to sort of steer into the wackiness of that like franchise trope.
It feels really good from the audience perspective too.
Good. Yeah,
that's
good.
Well, because it was so hard on the last one. Like, it's funny, like we keep hearing a lot on this one, how it's more brutal and it's more this and that and the other when it comes to violence. We're like, well, in the last one we killed Dewey. And that's way harder, like that. Yeah. So yeah, while the violence might be more intense in this one, like the emotional kind of violence of the last one, I think is probably worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, it's something else. Random question. Did you ever consider including scenes in the movie where the core four was actually in class at college?
The monologue was scripted for a minute to take place in a classroom. And it was when we were in prep, we'd found a cool location, but we realized when looking at the story from a bird's eye view that there was no time outside. And that for a city that's so defined by its exteriors in so many ways, it just felt like we were missing. To do that, we would be missing this kind of key ingredient to the feel of the movie. So we decided to set it on the campus instead, which we're really pleased with. I think that location is one of our favorites. One of our favorite shoot days too. Watching Jasmine take that out for a walk
she nailed it. She was like a couple takes, and we're like, oh wow.
Moving
So
on.
we thought this was going to be tough. Yeah,
we played Frisbee for a couple hours a day. I'm not even joking.
I got the vibe, so here's where I really panic. Many quick specific questions for you. Christina, so how they address what happened with their mother in the movie, does that mean that we are not going to end up seeing her in the flesh? Has she been cut off from their lives for good?
It's a great question. We just like love the excitement people have around
right.
a character that's never been on screen. I don't know. I don't think we have an answer, right?
No.
Yeah. I like that you don't have an answer to that. Okay, I'll take that. Does Sam dropping the Billy Loomis mask signify that she's kind of moved on, or is there a chance that we'll see him return in the visions in the future?
I think that darkness is something that character will always have in her. I think it's the thing that we love about Sam, that she's circling a solution or some reconciliation with that part of herself, but that's not going to just happen it's not going to happen that quickly. And we love that darkness is something that will.
And it's not about
continue to
overcoming
simmer
it and
inside
getting
her.
rid of it. It's about accepting it. That's the thing we
dealing
talked
with it.
about.
But that wasn't a sign of full reconciliation, basically.
I mean, listen, Gale said she wasn't going to write a book, and then
And then she wrote a book.
I have a lot of questions. I mean, in all honesty, do you know what inspired the choice to have her kind of, turn around on that matter in between films where we can't necessarily see her process and make that choice?
Yeah, I think it was just making sure that Gale was always Gale.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah,
it was just if we're gonna bring that character back, her intro's got to be something super quick and specific, and it has to be just like definitively Gale Weathers.
it's the most Gale thing possible.
It truly is.
You know?
Yeah.
Who's her new boyfriend, and was there ever another scene with
Brooks.
him in it?
No, I think that was it. Yeah, right?
Yeah,
was there,
that was it.
there? I think in earlier drafts, I feel like there was a
There was a foot massage.
There was a foot
that's
massage.
right.
Foot
Yeah.
massage.
Oh, God.
That's right. I forgot about the foot massage.
Over the years working on these two films, have you all ever considered making a reference to the TV show?
There is a reference in
There
this
is.
movie.
There is. There's the mask in the Brandon James mask is in
Where is
in
that
the subway.
thing?
In the subway.
Subway.
Yeah.
I can't believe maybe I selectively missed that.
Well,
No,
to be
guys,
500 costumes.
I loved that show ultimately. I never liked that mask. Never liked that mask. I don't know how much you guys have to do with the marketing, but I have two specific questions from one poster. It's one of the ones that looks like, Times Square, and it has a big ghost face next to a building or something, but it has Stab the Musical in it. Is that something you ever considered incorporating in the actual movie?
No, but when we saw that, I think we all had the
like,
same
perfect.
reaction.
Yeah,
we were
we're
like,
that's a great idea.
That's so
Yeah,
good.
what a-
Damn.
It'd be great.
Should have checked with marketing first.
I know.
So that poster also references the Mackenzies.
The Mackenzies, yes.
What's up with the and which Mackenzies are we talking about? Liv's family or the Mackenzies that lives near the Beckers?
there's so many Mackenzies now.
I'm just surprised about that too.
Yeah,
They all come from Haddonfield, too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where they come from.
So are the Mackenzies dead in your minds?
According to that poster.
Going forward, I don't even know. Can you talk a little bit about building? I want to go back to the Gale scene, I guess, specifically with this, just to focus on one particular one. Figuring out how to build tension in a moment like that via emotion versus leaning too much on the violence, because there's something about like the tone of that scene, the pacing of it, basically everything other than the actual like stabbiness and physical violence of it that I think is firing on all cylinders and makes that as effective as I said earlier.
I think a lot of that is just the expectation of, Gale's finally going to have a call with Ghostface. I think that sort of sets the table in a really specific way. And then I think with Gale specifically, you have a character who's now survived these movies 5 times, going on 6, and a really smart killer. And I think that watching two characters not only in a physical act fighting each other, but that they're also trying to outsmart each other and they're doing really smart things. That for us is where the best tension lives, is when a character is like doing the thing that's right, but the villain is ahead of them or like just on their tails. That for us is where really great tension lives, especially for characters like Gale, who's so smart and so capable, like runs and grabs her gun, shoots through that whole little run there is one of our favorite parts of the movie.
It's also having that moment with Dewey right before where you go like, you see her get kind of, choked up and you go like, oh, right, this is all, like Dewey's
Maybe
a part
she
of
hasn't
this.
dealt
We
with
haven't
it
let
fully.
go of that.
Yeah.
And like there's that moment earlier when Dewey's theme plays, or whatever, the Broken Arrow theme. But when Dewey's theme plays, when she's talking to Melissa, and that was something like our editor dropped in and we were like, oh my God, that's an incredible fucking choice. Let's not lose that. But it's like making sure that Dewey is a part of her story moving forward.
Good choice. I'll end with this one. Was that last line of hers always scripted that way? Was that something that evolved as you made the movie? How did that come about?
What's the last
The
line
Tell
of
City
hers?
never
Tell
got
City.
me.
Yeah.
That was
Got me.
always there.
Yeah,
That was that one
Yeah.
that like on the page, even reading it, we were like, oh God, this is gonna be really, this is gonna hurt in the best way, in a way that a Scream movie should hurt.
That's a good line.
Yeah. And Courtney brought it for that.
Very much. That whole sequence, she brought it above and beyond anything I ever could have imagined. They're making there's so much more.
Anytime. You just say the word.
Reach out to us directly and we'll do
I
another
know,
one.
really. I could go on and on. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got it.